last video, I talked about how the political writings of Ayn Rand came out of an extreme reaction to a bad experience she had. The bad experience of growing up in an oppressive communist regime in the former Soviet Union. The problem of going to extremes, however, isn't just about Ayn Rand's philosophy, it's a basic human problem. Sometimes we think that if something is good, then a whole lot more of it must be even better, right? But that's not always so. It's good to eat healthy food, but what if we eat constantly? We'll end up with morbid obesity, lots of health problems. If other problems come into our lives, we probably won't solve them because we'll just numb ourselves out with our habit of overeating, and we'll just ignore problems. Even our cherished values of independence and freedom that we have in the U.S. can sometimes be taken to extremes. We need to depend on other people sometimes, friends, relatives, neighbors, and they need to depend on us. We can't build every road that we need to travel on, and we can't learn everything we need to know by ourselves without any teachers or classes or books written by other people. Even freedom makes no sense in an unlimited way. There's that old saying, my freedom ends where your nose begins. We're not free to injure one another. We have laws against that. In the U.S., many of us are very enamored of the idea of free market capitalism. Free markets are good in moderation, but capitalism does depend on having laws to enforce contracts, to create an atmosphere where free markets can thrive and serve the needs of the people, to make fraud illegal, and for various other purposes. There are some situations in the U.S. that might be confusing if you don't know this fact. The U.S. is about economic opportunity. At the core of U.S. culture are beliefs in economic opportunity, individualism, freedom, and free markets. At least most Americans seem to like those ideals, even if it doesn't always work out that way. Economic opportunity is great. But when we go to extremes about pursuing economic opportunity, when we can destroy everything around us. Really, we know this in our hearts already. If a friend says to us, I'm going to make a lot of money by developing a new internet system, we might say, okay, you go, do it. But if a friend says, oh, I want to make a lot of money, so I'm going to become a hitman, well, we know that's wrong. When we go to extremes, our leaders can end up becoming just followers. They just follow the money. CEOs are hired to make a profit, and that's fine. But there's a problem if CEOs have no vision for their company, no plan for how to serve customers' needs. If a company will do anything just to make money, for example, if they will sell food that will make people sick or sell cigarettes to children, that's a problem. When we go to extremes about the free market, our souls can be just one more commodity that's bought and sold on the markets. People may sell their souls for a job, to get a good job. They may act dishonestly or destructively toward other people if the job demands it. Have you ever watched Congress on TV when they're conducting an investigation of a company? If you watch, you'll often see that the majority of Congress members are fawning over the CEO, not asking the hard questions to investigate the situation. On your TV, Congress may look like a bunch of puppies showering the CEO with admiration and love and affection. Have you ever asked yourself, why does this happen? Here's the reason. In the U.S., we encourage and reward success. And this can be a good thing when success is come by through legal and honorable means. For many Americans, successful CEOs are our admired role models. In American culture, we identify with and sometimes even idolize wealthy CEOs because of their success. We may hope to watch and imitate these CEOs so that we can become like them. In fact, sometimes we love successful CEO role models too much. Even though their success may not have been gained through honest means, we may love and admire successful people so much that we forgive them almost anything, and we may be willing to give them almost anything. So we may forgive too much, forgive destructive behaviors, and we may give too much. We may give them almost anything. For example, there seem to be no upward limits on the salaries and bonuses of CEOs. Their salaries have skyrocketed higher and higher compared to the average worker in recent years. CEOs ask for higher salaries and boards of directors grant them, even if the rank and file employees' wages are stagnating and they're having trouble surviving. There is no limit to how much a CEO can request in salary. The problem with this is that to a lot of people, money represents qualities like love, security, self-worth, admiration, status. And there's no amount of money that can help a person feel secure or can make a person feel secure. Because no matter what people believe, emotional security is not something that comes from money. So, for example, $5 billion is not enough to make an insecure person feel secure. So this extreme of admiring of success is why certain Congress members who are supposed to be investigating a company don't do it. Instead, when interviewing the CEO, they may lavish the CEO with admiration. They're going to extremes by worshiping financially successful people. Some Congress members have sold their souls and have gotten high prices for them. But CEOs whose companies may have committed fraud, fraud may have gotten super high prices for their souls. It looks like such CEOs are the role models of Congress members who would like to get even higher prices for their own souls. Perhaps most people would like to make a lot of money. That in itself is not a problem. The problem comes in when making a lot of money is the person's primary value, when they will destroy anyone or anything, perhaps destroy the whole economy, the air, the water, the soil of their country in order to make a lot of money. Doing that is extreme. The process of going to extremes can affect us at the highest levels of leadership in our country. For example, when we go to extremes about the free market, Congress members are just one more commodity that gets bought and sold on the free market. Think about that. When we're being constructive about leadership, we expect a leader to have a vision about where the country should be going in the future. But in the U.S., when we go to extremes about free markets, we end up just expecting our leaders to be followers. Most of the political leaders in the U.S. are really followers. Congress members of both parties may have to follow the money from campaign donors, or else they can't afford their election campaigns. That's the way our government is currently structured. So, what's the solution? Well, if we're going to extremes, then we need to come back to a more moderate, reasonable way of doing things. If we've been acting as if our only value is to follow the money, then we need to ask ourselves, what other values are important to me? What other values are important to us as Americans? What is our vision for ourselves, our families, and our nation for the future. I hope to hear from some people in the comments section below. For people who aren't from the U.S., feel free to ask yourselves these questions about your own country. Also, please talk to your friends in person about this in addition to commenting on the internet here. Although the internet's great for communicating with people who are far away, there's no substitute for the real in-person connections that you can make when you look into the eyes of your friend and you hear their voice tone and they hear yours, and you see all their body language, and maybe you pat them on the shoulder or whatever. There's no substitute for that kind of direct, close communication. So please do that too, in addition to commenting on the internet.